My name is Nick Dinsmore. This is the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Go back and check out my story. There's been a few episodes, so you might have missed a few things, and we'll try to catch everybody up. If you enjoy some Midwest All-Pro Wrestling, my professional wrestling company right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, if you're interested in some merchandise, MidwestAllPro.com has a shopping center, and you can get some Eugene merchandise as well. But let's get into the story. 1996, I began training professional wrestling at the Nitemare Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling in Jeffersonville, Indiana. I was going to college at the time at Indiana. As well as I was working, I was making kitchen cabinets, wooden kitchen cabinets at S. Brown Wood Products in Sellersburg, Indiana. I was good at it too. I began training, and we would train 3 nights a week at the school there, and I was also doing security on the events on the weekends. I had not yet started wrestling in front of a crowd, but I was training all the time with Danny, asking questions all the time. And I remember he had an event. He put on an event one time. It wasn't an OVW event, but it was an event in Franklin, Kentucky. And I remember it was the first time that I met the superstar Bill Dundee, and the first time that I met Wolfie D. And then somebody in the locker room showed me a picture. Now, it was a picture of a WWE diva that was on TV at the time, and she was in her wrestling gear, but no top. Oh my gosh. This was the greatest day of my life. I got to meet Wolfie D, and I got to see... But anyway, kept training. Eventually I had my first match, September the 1st. But leading up to those, we would have matches in class. And I was working a lot. The guys in class were like Vic the Bruiser, Trailer Park Trash, Jason Lee, David C., Black Hawk, Otter. Anyway, I was having a tag match one time in training. I think this is before I'd even started wrestling in front of a crowd. My partner was Jason Lee. Trailer Park Trash and Terrible Terry Bull were our opponents. And I was so unsure of what I was supposed to be doing, but I was in there. And they beat up on my partner. I knew we were the baby faces. I knew I was getting a hot tag, but I really didn't know what to do. I could do drop kicks. So I got the tag, and I come in, and I throw a drop kick, and I know at this point I'm supposed to fire up. I'm supposed to do something. And I just go, "Go team!" And at that point, Trailer Park Trash and Terry Bull just fell out laughing and couldn't feed and couldn't bump and feed. And I'm standing there so green, not knowing what the heck's going on. Go team! So Trailer Park Trash still ribs me to this day. Go team. Yay. So anyway, the first match was on September the 1st. At some point, I began training at the Watt Street building. And at some point, we moved over to Mechanic Street, which was basically a block over, but a little bit bigger of a building. Probably anything that you will see from OVW that's not in their newer building now, the old stuff, that was in the Mechanic Street building. September 1st, my first match was against the most handsome man in wrestling, Jason Lee. And at that point, I started wrestling every Sunday at the Nitemare Danny Davis School of Wrestling. We would train 3 days a week, going to college, working at the wood cabinet factory. And then I started wrestling on the weekends with some of the other guys that would go to Central City, Kentucky. Central City was run by a guy named Shelby Adcock. I believe it was called Tri-States Wrestling. And a lot of the guys would go down there because it was just somewhere else to work. I think I told the story in the last video about how I thought it was so cool. But the first time I met Shelby was I think his wrestling name was the Kentucky Hillbilly. And he had overalls. And the first time I met him, he stood up to shake my hands and his overalls completely fell down. Nothing on underneath. And I thought right then and there, his last name's got to be a word, Adcock. Call me Dizzy Nick Dinsmore. And one day he sat me down and he wanted to explain the business to me. He said, Dizzy, this wrestling business is like the road runner and that damn dog. The road runner moves and the cliff falls on the dog. And he looks at me as if I'm supposed to completely understand, so smile and nod, smile and nod. Would see some guys around, wrestling around the Kentucky, Tennessee area that had worked for Shelby. Good dude, good dude. So at some point in late '96, Danny Davis, I think it might have even been Rip Rogers. Rip Rogers booked an event in Lima, Ohio. It was at the Lima High School. and I helped take the ring up. I planned to do security, but I ended up wrestling. Danny Davis, his name was on the poster, but he didn't want to wrestle, so as not to false advertise, he called me Danny Davis for that one show. And I didn't have wrestling boots at the time, so he let me use his, and his boots are so small because he's got the little feet, right? So there's Nick Dinsmore as Danny Davis with the tight boots. Yay! I remember Honky Tonk Man was on the show. Hercules Hernandez was on the show. Rip, of course, was on the show. Coco Beware was on the show. And I was in a match on first against Roger Blade, Sergeant Roger Blade, who was another one of Danny's students. Roger Blade had another character. At one time, it was the Karaoke Man. The Karaoke Man. He came up to the ring with the karaoke machine. Everybody, karaoke! I still think that's funny as hell. So, wrestled Roger in Lima, Ohio, late 96, on first. Then we came back later in a mixed tag match. It was me and Debbie Combs against Roger and Lady Satan. Now, Lady Satan was Debbie Combs' mother. At the time, Debbie Combs was, at the time, Cora was 73 under the mask as a heel, Lady Satan. And I remember, I found myself in the corner, in the heel corner. And there's a 73-year-old woman choking me, workingly choking me with the tag rope, whispering three sweet nothings in my ear. It was the most intriguing yet but kind of weirdest moment, you know, at that point I had in wrestling. I was selling and they're getting the heat on me. And there she is, hey little boy, let me take you home. Yes, no, yes. So we continued to train weekly at Danny's school. Went into 1997, getting more experience. I was wrestling weekly at Danny's school. We would also travel around. Danny also had some other events that we toured. But at the same time, USWA was still on TV. And watched that every Saturday. They wrestled every Tuesday night at the Louisville Garden. So I'd go over there and watch. I'd watched as a kid. I'd been over there. And I remember one day I was at Danny's school at the training center for training. Somebody calls over, hey, somebody didn't show up to the Gardens tonight. It's Tuesday. We need a body. Danny goes, Nick, you want to go? Well, I had ridden my bicycle that day for fitness. And I think the show started at 7, and it was about 6 o'clock, and I had to pedal my ass home as fast as I could, get my wrestling gear, throw it in the car, speed over to the Louisville Gardens, which wasn't too far, 5-minute drive from my house, get into downtown Louisville, park. I don't know if I've ever parked downtown Louisville at that point. Park, run in the back door, and I see next, the first time I got to go backstage to a USWA event, the next time on my story. So please like and share and subscribe. Thank you.